I've gotten the chance to know you well, Eric. Many people know you well. Some don't know you at all. We're going to try to bridge the gap. We're going to have something new for people who may know you.
Okay.
But also something new for people who don't know you.
I'm going to take control here for a second.
Hit it.
I want to say how
show.
honored I am to be here. I think you guys have done an awesome job curating a great collection of folks that are working on very similar things, connecting with consumers and guests. Following Mindy and Allison, I'm not that pleased about. So Kevin, where's Kevin at? Did he leave for my section? Yeah. I also noticed that you have me after the 2 stars and before you. So we'll, Kevin and I do a little podcast about dads. We are going to unpack this at an upcoming episode of Legacy Makers for Dads. So, but in all seriousness, this is awesome. I'm excited to be here. I'm honored to be here. Following Mindy, we're 70-year partners, the Coca-Cola company and Disney, almost 100 with Delta. And these are 2 brands. I've heard Chick-fil-A say this, like the aspiration should be if we no longer existed, their lives would be different and impacted. And Disney and Delta are 2 brands, absolutely. I know the Blumenthal lives would be way different, as much money as we spend at Disney for sure. So
we're going off script here, but I realized just now that each of the brands represented today, Delta, Disney, now Coca-Cola, are all 100-year brands.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's pretty special when you think about enduring brands and iconic brands. I just love the way we were with a friend of yours recently, Tim Tassopoulos, former president of Chick-fil-A, and he said something that stuck with me. He talked about stretching the time horizon by which you evaluate decisions. And he said, good leaders make decisions that impact a quarter or a year. Great leaders make decisions that impact a generation. And I think you're a leader worth following, and just appreciate the way that Coca-Cola and you as a leader there have stewarded the brand well.
Thank you for letting me go off script. I appreciate it.
Yes, no, well, I'm always happy to go off script. All right, we're gonna get to know Eric. We're gonna have some fun with him right now. We're gonna go super speed date style questions. We're gonna get to know him. Ready? Eric, what's a movie you could watch every day?
Frozen.
Elsa, Let It Go.
All 4 of my kids at some point in their life have gone through a Frozen phase, and I've seen that movie probably 200 times. Olaf is my spirit animal, and I'm like Team Anna all the way in terms of my favorite Disney. She's not really, I guess she a princess? She's a princess, right? Like she's second in line, but she's still a princess, yeah. So
Still a princess.
Yep.
All right, let's keep it moving. What's your favorite sport to watch?
Basketball, NBA during the playoffs, because they don't seem to play at all until the playoffs, and then college basketball.
We are entering the best time of the year.
Yes.
We have NBA playoffs,
March
NHL
Madness.
playoffs, March Madness, Masters is it's about to be it.
Everything you said minus NHL.
As a Bostonian, I take personal offense there. What types of books do you like to read?
Leadership books. I really enjoy them. Was with Mike Lynch, who's a pastor at our local church this morning, going through a spiritual leadership book, just trying to continue to evolve there.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
NBA player. My parents were fantastic. They always told me to go after my dreams. I wish they would have informed me much earlier that was not a possibility, and play in the NBA.
For those of you who don't know, Eric is one of 3 boys. So it begs the question, which of the 3 brothers is the best basketball player?
I have not been beaten in one-on-one.
Okay. That's all you need to know.
My youngest brother, Ryan's here. I stopped playing Ryan when he was 12, and he almost beat me. He is by far the best. But he's never beaten me in one-on-one.
Hey, Ryan, we have video recording of this that will be shared with you. Don't worry.
I'm not interested.
All right, which unconventional animal do you wish you could have as a pet? A panda.
My Instagram algorithm is full of pandas. I love pandas. They're so cute.
My wife says too. Pandas are amazing. What's your favorite celebrity encounter?
Besides this one, I would say...
It's got body bagged.
No, you know what? A couple years ago at a wedding, I happened to be at Pat McAfee was there. And if you don't know Pat McAfee from College Game Day, like a super big personality, I went up to talk to him, and it turned into like hanging out for a couple hours. And he was exactly, if you know him and see him on TV, exactly how he is. on TV as how he's in real life, and it was a lot of fun.
I love when he went to Athens this year, college game day, when he called the dogs.
Yes.
Electric.
Yeah.
All right, next question. What's the nicest thing someone has ever done for you?
I'd say believe in me. You know, there's been a couple of moments in my career where leaders have taken a chance that, you know, put me in a situation to see if I could succeed. And I look back on a few of those moments and those faces as very important moments in my career.
Our last speed dating question. If you could have a gigantic billboard in Times Square that shared one sentence message with the world, what would it be?
We went deep.
I went deep. This is the transition point.
I think we have a deficiency in encouragement. So I would just have very simply encourage. I think that it's something that all of us can do. It's easy, but rarely do we do that. And so I would remind folks with that.
Let's move into Coca-Cola conversation. You've had a long career at Coca-Cola, successful in all the ways. Let's go back before the career started.
Okay.
And your first brand interactions that you remember with Coca-Cola. Where did that love for the brand first start for you?
I have like 3 memories that are stamped. One, we'd go visit my grandparents in Clinton, Missouri, 90 miles outside of Kansas City, and my granddad was always like, list of stuff to do, chores, just an amazing man. But he'd have Coke glass bottle in his fridge, and it was like his reward at the end of a day getting his chores done. I just remember seeing that. My mom would take my brothers and I to Blockbuster on Friday after school, and we'd get to fight over what movie we were going to rent, but we all got to go through that fast lane and pick out a Coke 20 ounce for movie night, and that was a real special moment. And then the final one, it's not because our friends from Disney are here, but I can, like, the taste of a warm Mickey face salted pretzel and a Coke at Magic Kingdom. Growing up, and we go to Disney all the time, and the kids get to enjoy that. But as I thought about this question, like we're all blessed to have whatever brands we're stewarding and working on. We get to share experiences and moments with people. And I think the great brands elevate those moments. And that's what we should all be striving to do, because if you're able to elevate a moment, you're sticky, that moment becomes a memory, and you matter to the person. But like those 3 moments like are really important to me because I can remember, and Coke was attached. It's not about Coke, but that Coke was attached to that.
I love it. Shared experiences lead to memories, kind of driven by care.
Yeah.
You entered Coca-Cola officially through an internship.
I did.
Would love to hear, what was that internship experience like, and how does that internship experience now inform how you go about your role today?
Yeah, so my Coke friends have heard this story. So I interned at Coke the summers before my junior and senior year, and it was like wild. I would show up some days and I'd be moving people's offices that just got fired. I would be working at the help desk, front desk. Like, it was basically like, oh, this is an internship, is like the most odd jobs ever. But one experience stuck with me. So I would show up on a Monday and I'd get my assignment for the week, and I showed up and my supervisor was like, hey, go down to the tech building underneath the basement, the lab, and you're going to get to work on this cool innovation project. I'm like, oh, I'm psyched. I just got done moving boxes last week. Like, this is going to be cool. So I go down there, and they have a Segway scooter, and attached to it is a big cooler. And the thought was, so one of our most important leaders, Robert Woodruff, former CEO for almost 50 years, he had this thing that he would say, within an arm's reach of desire. And so on the background of that, this idea was, hey, we're going to run this cooler scooter thing out at amusement parks, at sporting events, and we're going to drive it and sell 20 ounce to people instead of them having to wait in line. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm going to be putting together the scooter. And they're like, no, you're going to test battery life. What that meant was I would go up on the 8th floor of the parking garage. There was a track that people would use to run before and after work, and I had a clicker, and I rode that baby around in circles for 8 hours until the battery died, and then I would walkie-talkie down, hey, the battery's dead, and they'd bring me another battery up. It was July, and first day, wasn't aware I'd be outside for 8 hours driving in circles, very badly sunburned. But on the hour, every hour, somebody would come up and they would grab a 20 ounce and they would take that down. So it was the battery, but it was also at what point is that beverage not going to be the perfect temperature, carbonation level. And the intentionality behind that stuck with me. And as I think about my time at Coke, scale is important to all of us, but how do you get ruthless about that micro moment, that individual experience? Because that's what brands have to do. I look at faces here that represent really big brands that serve a lot of customers. You have to do it at scale, but you can't lose the importance of that one interaction, and that's stuck with me really my entire career.
I love that. I've met people on the other side of that story who remember the first time they heard of you was looking down.
I'm not kidding. It's
and
true.
Seeing this kid on the
It was 5 days, 8 hours a day.
It's incredible.
I would look up and there would be people gathering, looking down. At one point there was a helicopter that came, like a WSB helicopter. I'm like,
You're in
I'm going to be
distress.
famous for this. I'm just like, this is unbelievable. It's like $11 an hour and a sunburn.
There's been some time that's passed between that internship
Yes.
and where you sit now. Would love to skip ahead to where you sit now and just talk about your current role and what that looks like.
Yeah, so currently I lead, I have the privilege of sitting on our food service leadership team. I lead what we call commercial customer value and growth. There's a lot of words there. I'll unpack that in a minute. But the business unit, I'm going to kind of take a step there. Like, I get to work in what we call our food service and on-premise business. So it is your traditional restaurants. So quick serve restaurants, fast casual, full service. It's also our theaters, our amusement parks, airlines, hotels, college and university. It's a really special business at Coke. We started almost 139 years ago right down the street at Jacob's Pharmacy in a fountain. And that's the business unit that I get to work in. And it's just really, really special. It's one drink at a time. At the height of Jacob's Pharmacy, it was 8 servings a day. We sit today at almost 1.9 billion daily servings around the world. So the scale is amazing, but it's super important to Coca-Cola. It's a really large business. It's almost 10% of our global revenue. So the size is important, but as importantly, it's a huge recruitment channel for us. A lot of people have their first Coca-Cola beverage in a restaurant or at an amusement park. So we build brands in this channel, and we built a lot of scale. So about 3 out of 4 restaurants in the United States serve our products. 9 of the top 10 airlines, 90% in amusement, 90% in theaters. And I share all that because we're really proud of that, but it's more than the brands that we get to steward and serve. It's our people, and it's what we refer to as our value proposition. And so the team that I get to lead is really stewarding and shepherding that value proposition. We have amazing account teams that work with our partners, but I've got a team of folks that are thinking about digital and innovation and new equipment and insights, our chief economists. We've got 9 or 10 kind of groups, and we are here to serve and come alongside our customers and our customer teams, because at the end of the day, what we want to hear from our customers is Coke is the best, business partner. I hate the word supplier. I don't even want to be referred to as a beverage partner. We want to be business partners. We want to be linked to the overall health of our partner. We want to help predict their next storm. We want to bring our best thinking. We want to learn from them. And so it's a really awesome role. I've been in it 2 years. I spent most of my career with customers. So I've been in Coke 18 years. I was local market food service. I did bottler roles and brand roles, but spent a lot of time with customers. On our Wendy's team, I got to lead our relationship with Chick-fil-A for a few years, which was amazing. Our relationship with Rourke Capital, who's a big private equity company that owns 16 or 17 now restaurant brands. So like, I am completely a customer person, and they put me in this commercial role, and my people know more about all the things than I do, but I know a lot about our customers, and I'm trying to bring that to ensure we're adding value there. So that's kind of my world at Coca-Cola.
I think something I admire about you is the passion by which you think about adding value to people. But 2 years ago, we had a conversation, and you probably don't remember this, but you were asking yourself the question at the time, how do I help Coke rise above product with people-centric solutions for the customers that we serve? And it was a pretty profound question to be asking as like a beverage company. We're going to get to thinking about how to create value for customers, but I think you have a belief, we're here because we're talking about inside-out brands, that the best brands start from the inside out. And you talk about that being a starting with a strong culture.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear you share some thoughts on, because you see going outside of Coca-Cola such a range of cultures with the customers that you serve, some transferable principles that would be relevant for everybody here today, about creating, nurturing, sustaining strong culture. And I think we've talked about 5 of them specifically. Would love to start with the idea of empowerment first.
Yeah, I want to just hit on what you said though for a second, because I think it's important to kind of put an underline. So we were having a conversation, I think at the time, around labor and people, right? And again, what most people would look at Coca-Cola, they wouldn't be saying, why are you talking about labor and people? Well, we're talking about labor and people because it's the number one thing that our customers are struggling with. So if we are the leader and their partner, we got to figure out our way to help rise that and make an impact there. And so we've done some stuff with you all, but like that's what we're trying to do. There is a transactional element that's going to happen in all of your businesses. In our business, I'm very much B2B. You're going to buy and sell products, rising tide lifts all ships. But the reality is we are here to try to solve problems and to be the best partner. And I think as we continue to unpack this notion of being a value creator, that's the most important thing. It is the most important thing in any of our job titles is to be a value creator. I don't care what your role is, you are here to add value in some capacity. So, empowerment. Thank you. I had the opportunity, as I mentioned, to work closely with Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A has an amazing relationship with Horst Schultz, who is the co-founder of Ritz. And honestly, if you all have not spent time reading and listening to him, he's just one of the most amazing thought leaders on hospitality in general. And I got to hear him speak at one of y'all's reunion, or Next. And you might have heard the story. Like, he's got this thing called the $2,000 rule. And his vision for the hospitality of the Ritz-Carlton was not coming to life. And the folks at the hotel just they couldn't figure it out. And he's trying to figure it out. And finally what they did, they instituted a $2,000 rule. Everybody at the hotels had $2,000 to fix a mistake. Whether you were working at the front desk, you were the manager, did not matter your role. You didn't have to ask for permission. You saw a guest that wasn't happy, you fixed the mistake. And that turned the whole culture around. And the takeaway for me is, how do you make sure that you empower your people? How do you make sure that they know the level of empowerment that they have? You define that. And then how do you make sure they're actually taking it? So they would go and look, okay, how many people are actually doing this? And the take rate wasn't as high. So they're pushing like, no, you need to spend the money. And I think for us as leaders, that empowerment piece, we talk a lot about at Coke. It's one of our 4 growth behaviors. And it's equal part, the leader has to empower and the person has to take the empowerment that they're given. And that can be a hard thing. But I think that's one of the big takeaways. I remember coming off that and hearing him speak and just feeling so inspired by that.
There's a story, I think it's fake, it has to be fake, but that is in Ritz-Carlton lore, where a guest at some point, I think they were with their kids, and the kids had do you know the story?
Giraffe?
All right, show the giraffe story. Josh the giraffe, that's a better story.
I just know that there was a child who left his giraffe. I think they called from the airport. They were getting on a plane. I think the giraffe was Joshy, I think the name, was that right?
That's right.
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey the giraffe.
Jeffrey the giraffe. And I don't remember all the things, but the hotel was like, okay, we found him. We're going to send him. But they sent him back with Polaroid pictures of like Jeffrey at the spa, Jeffrey sitting at the poolside, Jeffrey, so the child has in this great handwritten letter. But again, like somebody had to feel like, okay, I can either just go mail this from the business center in the hotel, but what's that next level? And someone had to be empowered to go do that. No one told that associate to go do that.
All right, let's talk about the second principle, high standards.
Yeah. So Culver's, they were with a different beverage partner for quite a while, and recently have made a decision to not be, and we're happy about that decision. So
some of your team who is a great job in that in this room as well. We might have been
involved in that. It was very good. I actually just came back from Culver's meeting with them, but it was amazing. The conversion happened a couple years ago, and things happen, service issues happen, and it was early in the conversion, and we got a call. Like, it was not a huge issue, like not something that the CEO and Craig Culver would be calling us about. And we had this conversation. They actually spoke a lot. I listened. about the situation that occurred, and they were right. Like, we had dropped the ball on something, but what they kind of had gone on to explain was just the importance of the standards that they have for their operators, for their supplying partners. Craig Culver told me, he's like, I get a call once a week from restaurants, direct cell phone. All the franchisees have access to my cell phone. A head of lettuce isn't what it needs to be. And he set this culture now. I think that as they've grown to now over 1,000 restaurants, it's probably not going to be sustainable, but they've ingrained in their culture that the standards that they expect, and their leaders want to know about it, and they want to know how they can ensure that they're driving that excellence. And that was something that was a hard lesson to learn, but like, it was a really important one to ensure that we're matching that or being above that.
I love the principle of underneath the high standard you communicated indirectly. Like, feedback is so important to driving and holding accountability to that standard.
That's right.
Let's talk about number 3. This is my favorite one, fun.
Yeah. The last couple of years, I've got to spend a decent amount of time with Texas Roadhouse. If you all have not eaten at a Texas Roadhouse, you need to. Many people don't know about this brand. They don't spend any money on advertising at all. Their late founder, Kent, who passed away a few years ago, was all about fun. And not like to be childish, but like childlike fun, infusing that in the culture from their support center down to their restaurants. If you've gone to Texas Roadhouse, they're all about smiles. They have music blaring every hour on the hour. There's a line dance that occurs that the guests participate in. There's contests, like daily contests that guests don't know about, but they're like, the crew is like always competing, whether it's like customer service things or who can cut the best steak, but the camaraderie in the restaurant is incredible. And I've gotten to go to their convention, and their convention's 3 days, very little business content. It's all culture. Music is very important to their founder. He was a musician. They have 3 concerts. They do a whole bunch of service activities. They do field day competitions, but it translates down. Their servers are not servers, they're storytellers. There's no worrying about the turnover at time at the restaurant. Their job is to get to know their regulars, as they call them. And so I think it's so important for us you gotta like what you do, you gotta like who you do it with. Sometimes we get so focused on the results that you lose sight of that piece of it, and just a reminder to us all to ensure that we're infusing fun and into the culture that we're leading.
The 4th principle that you talked about in creating a contagious culture is instilling a growth mindset.
Yeah. I've got 2 Dan Cathy stories. I didn't know that Dan would be introducing me today. So I think it was Albuquerque. I was with him traveling restaurants, and all my Chick-fil-A friends know, like, Dan is so much fun to watch in a restaurant, just talking to all the guests and all the operators. And he was the register operator, had like a little in-training ribbon underneath her badge, and Dan said he'd never seen it before. I don't know if that was true, because I think he had, but in his mind, that was the first time he had seen it, and he was engaging this young lady that worked at Chick-fil-A, and he was like, what does that mean? What is that? Well, I'm new here, and we put these in-training ribbons under our badges because the guests, then they give us more grace, and we're trying to learn, and he just was like lit up about it. And I've not seen him without his badge that has now an in-training ribbon on it. And I just think, again, as the leader, he's the chairman now of the company, but what an amazing example. The co-founder's son, who has served that brand for so long, has the mindset of being in training. And I think that, spending time with people that work at Chick-fil-A, like, they're one of the most curious cultures I've ever seen. They're always seeking and striving, and I think that starts from the top of building that curiosity muscle, never feeling like you have all the answers, that you're always learning. I think is a beautiful, humble way to lead. But that's something that has stuck with me since.
Let's 5 of 5 for
5 of 5, yeah.
Servant leadership.
Yeah, I think this is like servant leadership, but like modeling the culture that you want to see. So we were chatting at lunch, Grace, and I had the privilege of traveling with Dan a little bit, and Dan flew commercial a lot too, so I don't want to like play, he was on a private plane. They have Move Force One, which is their plane that he'll take, but he flew Delta a lot, and it was always coach. I traveled with him to Dubai one time, and I was in business class, and that was awkward because he walked right by going to coach. I was like, oh boy. But we got to travel with Dan. It was my first time traveling with Dan. We were going out to the Bay Area. We get out, and I've never flown private. So I get off the plane, and I'm like, there's a car here. I'm going to go to the car. And the guy I was with was like, have you ever traveled with Dan? I was like, no. He's like, you get your bag. Like, you get your bag. Like, put it in the car. Got it. We get in the car, and there's a standoff occurring. Dan is standing at the door to the driver's door. The chauffeur driver is standing where Dan is supposed to be going. And it is a standoff. They're staring at each other, and I'm like, what's happening? The guy I'm with is like, just watch. I was like, okay. Finally, Dan's like, we're not going anywhere until you come here. I would like to hold the door for you. Guy gets in the car. Dan gives him the seatbelt. That was awkward, but he physically tried to buckle his seatbelt. It didn't work. But anybody that spent time with him, he oozes hospitality. And if you don't really know him, you kind of think it's are you being, he's serious. He'll bust tables. You'll be out to eat with him. He's taking stuff back to the kitchen. But I just think that's how he's wired. And that's, not many of us have walked into one of Chick-fil-A's 3,000 plus restaurants and had an experience that didn't ooze hospitality. And so I think it's the importance of, culture's really important. Say the things that are important, but if you're not modeling that as the leader, there's a disconnect, right? So that would be my other story there.
If those are the 5 principles that are transferable, would love to follow up with a question that gets more practical. So when you think about the practices, communications, activities that have driven culture within Coca-Cola for you, what have been some of those most effective ones? Yeah,
listen, I think leaders speak, like the ratio of talking about culture and doing culture is way off. I think it's the easiest thing to say, this is what we're going to be. But the actual doing part of culture is the really important one. I would encourage folks, for me, I try to always envision, okay, in a couple years, whenever that might be, and I'm no longer in this role, and my people are doing exit interviews, what do I want to hear from them about the culture that they got to work in, the type of leader that I was? And I really am intentional about trying to reverse engineer that experience. And I think we all need to start with that, start with the end in mind, right? The cliche thing to say, but it's true. I think about culture as 2 parts. So it's endearing and enduring. The endearing part is, what do I want to set for my team culture-wise that they're going to thrive? They're going to be their best. They're going to deliver great results. They're going to love coming to work. They're going to love each other. They're going to just be, their very best person. And for me, what I think, there's a lot of things. There's 3 things I'll mention. Authenticity for me is the most important. It builds trust. It allows people to show up who they are. So authenticity, serving, and caring. That's it for me as I think about my culture. And so serving is so important, because I'll take, my team's about 80 people. I'll take 80 servant leaders over 80 of the most talented, smartest people. I will go every single day with servant leaders. I want selfless people that care about the organization, care about the work. So I want to have that culture really, really strong. So authentic, serving, and then caring. We don't say care enough. We don't talk about love in the workplace. I love my team. I love working with my people. Not to take a negative or a sad turn. A couple weeks ago, a gentleman that worked on my leadership team passed away very unexpectedly. It was the hardest thing I've gone through professionally. I loved him. And the hardest thing I had to do is get on a call with my team and see their faces as I broke that news to them. The other side of that was I was very thankful that I get to work in an environment that is the culture that we've created. We're doing life together versus that's my coworker, So set an endearing culture where people are going to thrive. The hardest part of that is the enduring equation. I'm in year 2. I'd much prefer to really put my head down and drive the results we need to drive. But the 2 years of equity that I've built in being consistent will evaporate if I show up for a week in a way that's inconsistent with what I've said the culture needs to be. And so I think people can set endearing cultures. They can cast vision about endearing cultures. The leaders that can figure out how that can endure are the ones that are going to really be successful.
And I'm imagining there's constant investment needed over time. It's a living, breathing thing, creating that enduring element to a culture.
It is. I think that, again, many of you have larger organizations than I do. I've got about 80 people, but like, I've got to figure out what the team needs, and I have to figure out what the individual 4 levels below me needs. I have to know them. People want to be known. They want to be cared for. So the enduring part, it's consistency. It's also the ratio of 1-to-1. I've got to figure out how I can get 1-to-1 with people. Some teams that are bigger, figure out how you can do maybe group sessions, but I've got to touch everybody on my team. Like I have to know them. I have to know what they do. I want them to know me, right? So it's hard, but I think leaders think too much they're supposed to do things. Like I'm setting culture, I'm removing barriers. If I'm doing things, it's a bad deal. I've heard our CEO, James Quincy, say it really changed my leadership a few years ago. He said, I judge the success of a year based on the number of decisions I make. Mm-hmm. And meaning like, I want to make if I made no decisions, I had a great year. Yeah. And that's leadership. And if you're not doing and making decisions, then you can do the enduring part of the culture piece because you have more time to invest there.
There's an NYU marketing professor named Scott Galloway, a thought leader. He has a quote that greatness is in the agency of others. And it's shifting the lens by which you evaluate greatness. It's not just personal pursuit, but it's how do you help pull greatness out of others. And collectively, I think we move a lot further, faster.
Should get Scott up here.
Next year, Scott Galloway's coming. We'll see.
Put it out in the universe.
That'd be fun. He's a personality. If you know him, he has a podcast, a lot going on. He's a big personality. All right, culture. When we think about aiming that culture towards adding value, which is really where we started the conversation, adding value, how do you think about value? Such an interesting word. I think a lot of people have different definitions of it. Yeah. Like I think most of us and most consumers hear the word value, and you think about like the value wars. You think about like this race to the bottom of who can cut prices the lowest to win the most consumers through price. Would love to hear you, I think you have a contrarian take on value that's valuable. Would love to hear you unpack how you think about defining value.
Yeah, I don't know if it's contrarian. That's nice of you to say, I think. I think like quite simply value is what you get divided by what you pay. And I think we rotate towards the what you pay, like as we think about being a business. The reality is we all need to innovate, ideate, accelerate the what you get component of that equation, both when thinking about people that work for you and also your end guest. You know, you can look at all the research. People leave, like most leaders will think, okay, what you get or what you get paid kind of in the employee relationship, that's the most important thing. Compensation, that's the thing. People leave jobs because of their direct manager, because they don't see room for growth, then it's pay, and then the fourth thing is culture. So 3 of the top 4 things that get people to leave are absolutely in the control of the leader, and it's all about the what you get part of that equation for your employee, right? Like, it's almost a cop-out to say, okay, what's compensation? It's not. So, and then on the flip side with customers, you know, again, going back to the Chick-fil-A thing, like, their service model is going the extra mile. That's innovating and ideating off of the what you get component. They're, you know, story after story of successful brands. They are successful because they have figured out a way to innovate against or lift up. Think about Disney, Delta. We heard stories today. The what you get component. I know Allison's not here, but she had to leave. Listen, I'll look at multiple flights. Delta is not the cheapest flight. I'm taking Delta 10 out of 10 times because of what I get as a consumer, right? So I think that's what we have. We have to really push ourselves in whatever business you're in to innovate against that what you get component. The price, got it. There'll be smart people to figure out the pricing mechanisms and revenue growth management and all the things. But our job is to innovate against that what you get component, and you got to do it all the time because people's expectations continue to skyrocket.
I think we have David Salyers here with us today. He talks about
yes, there it is.
A mindset of extracting value versus creating or enriching value. And I think it comes down to, like, when you think about enriching other people, oftentimes the return on that over the long run is much greater than if you're trying to work backwards from extracting as much value as possible.
That's great.
Let's talk about some of the timeless elements of value. when we think about just a changing landscape and value today maybe looks different than it does tomorrow, how do you think about timely versus timeless when it comes to elements of value?
Yeah, I think that it's natural to think about change, and you hear all these quotes about how fast change is, and that's fine. But I think there's things that are not changing, and we should be really ruthless against the stuff we know that's not going to change. So I really try to push myself as we think about building plans or think about customer relationships of like, okay, got it, there's a thing, there's something they need, but what's not changing? And there's a lot of stuff that's not changing. I think about care. People want to be cared for. I've heard it said, cared for people care for people. So how do you figure out a way to infuse care into your culture, into your offering? I think about relationships. People want to be in relationship. They want to be in community. It might be different though. Like, I'll give you an example. My wife, who I love, has a problem with Amazon. Like, a problem meaning like our garage is like a fulfillment center. Came home last night from the airport. It's like stuff's going out, things are coming in. It's nonstop. She has a really good relationship with Amazon. So I called her on the way here. I'm like, hey, we didn't get to spend time last night home late. Like, what's happening in the garage? She's like, it's all good. I love Amazon. She's like, I love them. You know all that stuff I got for the girl's birthday party? I'm like, yeah, you see all the boxes. She's like, well, I just changed my mind and I'm gonna send it all back. I'm like, babe, there are like 14 boxes here. And she's like, no. She's like, I was texting with her yesterday. I was like, who's her? And I'd forget it might have been like Michelle. It doesn't matter. It wasn't a person, but in Brittany's mind, she's like, and I was with the girls in car line and it was so easy. I talked to her for like 30 minutes and we got it all figured out. But like she has a relationship with Amazon, like because they communicate with her in a way. So like it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to, relationships are timeless. The timely piece of it is how do you pivot in a way to ensure that people still feel like there's relational value with them and your brand using technology or using whatever method you need to be. So I think we have to think about things that way. It's really, really important.
We're gonna have one more question before hitting Q&A. So I'd love for y'all to have the chance to ask Eric some questions as well. Let's land on, we started some of this conversation with the idea of the most important role you can have is being a value creator. Yeah. And the cool thing about that is whether we're on a brand team, a marketing team, a talent team, is that being a value creator is role agnostic. It's a more of a mindset and a posture and how you show up. Can you share in your own words what it looks like to show up every day as a value creator?
Yeah, I really believe it's just making situations, interactions, leaving it better than you found it. I think if you approach, we all have meetings stacked up. We all have conversations that occur maybe impromptu. If your approach is more often than not, I'm leaving it better than I found it, I think that to me is a value creator. I think the other thing that we have to do is we have to take what is the thing I'm trying to advance and set that aside and focus on the person or the group that you're dealing with. Like, I'm a huge believer that if we can be patient, all of the growth that we're looking for is gonna occur. But you gotta be patient, you have to be consistent, and you have to continue to see things in the customer or whoever the stakeholder's eyes are. At Coca-Cola, our account teams are not successful if they're selling stuff. Like, you're finding solutions for stuff. And you might be 9 months working with one of our partners and you might be spending 9 months of your time and nothing to do with beverages, and that's all right. These relationships that we have, if we're doing it right, are multi-generational relationships. Of course we want to sell more things. Of course we want more of our products going through, but not at the risk of alienating or creating a rift in the relationship. It's always got to be about what does the person sitting across from me need and how can I help them?